Welcome back, everyone. Sheepdog Smokey here, and we have another amazingly misleading article from a liberal that aims to tell you that Republicans are evil people. According to this, if it were true, 183 Republicans voted against lowering the cost of prescription medication. If this was as straightforward as they portray it to be, there would have been a simple bill in the U.S. Congress to lower the cost of prescription medication. You see, that's not what happened. The More Health Education Act, which is H.R. 987, which they're talking about, is right here. According to the summary, let's actually move this up a bit so that you can see that. This bill requires the Department of Health and Human Services, HHS, to conduct outreach and educational activities regarding federally facilitated exchanges, i.e., health insurance exchanges that are established and operated within the states by HHS. The activities must inform potential enrollees of the availability of coverage and related financial assistance under the exchanges and must be provided in culturally and linguistically appropriate formats. This is the summary of the More Health Education Act. This is literally them telling you what this bill does, okay? So where in that do you get lower prescription drugs? Now, yes, I realize congressional summaries are about as useless as a screen door on a submarine, but they do tend to at least tell you the salient points. And I don't know what it is about liberals that they actually believe they can tell you 183 Republicans voted against lowering your drug charges, because that's never the case. In 2012, we famously have Nancy Pelosi. We have to pass the Affordable Care Act to find out what's in it. No, Congresswoman, we don't. In fact, that's the exact opposite of what's supposed to happen. But since no one ever reads the bills, they can get away with this crap. There are so many things going on, and it all boils down really to one thing. It boils down to liberals' demands that they just be obeyed. It boils down to, how dare you not vote for my bill? We've seen other examples of this where Ms. Ocasio-Cortez just lambastes the Senate for supposedly sabotaging her Green New Deal by calling it for a vote. You see, she introduced a bill. Normally what happens is you introduce a bill and then it goes through the process and it is voted on. But she didn't want it voted on. She wanted to be able to use it for 4 years, or in her case 2 years, to paint everyone who disagrees with her as wanting the planet to die. This one is going to be the same. This is going to be very simply Democrats all over the campaign trail going on and on and on about 183 Republicans that did not want to make your prescription drugs cheaper. And it'll end up the same way that it ended up with Kamala at her town hall when she was asked if she would let felons vote from prison, and her response, well, we can have that conversation. Okay, let's have it. It's going to be the same thing with this. They're going to bring up that this bill, and they're always going to say, all this was, we just wanted to make your drugs cheaper. They're not going to say anything about any of the amendments or anything else. They're not going to talk about how all they've done is one of two things. Talk about people who voted no as if they're demon spawned from the ninth circle of hell, and they're going to demand that everyone support it. They're not going to ever talk about what's in it. Okay? You could do a lot of good for prescription drug charges by very simply looking at the members of Congress to see who has taken donations from the big pharmaceutical companies. Cory Booker, I'm looking at you. And when we start doing that, you'll see that Cory Booker has probably a pretty good history of voting for bills that favor big pharma over American citizens. They also go on and on about how the Republicans are just out to sabotage the Affordable Care Act. They ignore stories from people like me. Prior to the ACA, I had good coverage. It wasn't the best. I would much rather have had the coverage I had in the mid to late 1990s when I was working for a large airline and also a large hotel chain later, where I could go see my doctor anytime I wanted with or without an appointment for $10. Most of my prescriptions were $15 or less. Fast forward to 2012, and to give you an idea, I paid about $90 a month for that. Now, I realize that's about $180 a month now, but fast forward to the 2012 ACA. My monthly cost was over $350. I no longer had a copay. I couldn't go see my doctor for less than $150. I also couldn't find most of the prescriptions I needed for less than $40. Thankfully, the two times I did need to get a prescription filled, Walmart had it on their generic list and I got it for $20. Okay? The Affordable Care Act was never about being affordable. Prescriptions are horrible. Coverage, horrible. Costs, horrible. My mother called several times because she could not find a plan she could afford accepted by any doctor within 100 miles one way of her home. At one point, one of the operators actually hinted that if she were to divorce my father, she would be able to get different concessions, possibly an exemption. When my mother then pressed, "You're telling me to divorce my husband?" They backtracked to me. "Oh, no, 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 no. I just was reading that out." She was forced at 62 to buy a plan she really couldn't afford because otherwise she would be fined that same amount or more when she filed her taxes. And she could never use it because the only doctor that would take it was over 100 miles away. She complained and complained and complained, and no one listened. The only lucky thing we have is that my mother and I are generally healthy. Yes, I do get a few sick days a year because I get either my back locks up or I have my allergies act up and they have my stomach in knots. Typically, and I'm saying typically as in 97 to 98% or more of the time, I can take over the counter medication, drink water, drink chicken broth, lay in bed, and I can recover in a day. I've had one incident really that I had to just suck it up and go to the ER. And that was where I had something with my leg, and ultimately that ended up costing me about $1,000 for one visit that took 30 minutes. How in the blue hell is that affordable? And the answer is simple. It's never about lowering prices, lowering costs. It's about control. Because you see, under that bill, I had to take an insurance plan the government approved of. Even though Barack Obama is on record multiple times, if you like your plan, you can keep your plan. If you like your doctor, you can keep your doctor. I couldn't do either. Neither could my mother. My father lucked out because he's with the VA. As far as this goes, they're going to go on and on and on about all this is lowering prescription drug costs. And they're going to ignore the poison pill amendments. They're going to ignore that it is just government takeover because they're going to put restrictions on who can do what. They're not going to let companies compete. They actually want to limit competition. And when you limit competition, costs go up. Look what happened with the ACA. Insurance companies were no longer competing with each other near to the level they were prior to 2012, so their prices went up. Drug companies were no longer having to compete with as many different people to sell their drugs. Costs went up. Doctors weren't competing, their costs went up. This is about control, and it always will be. And they're hopeful that the people are just so ignorant they won't ever notice it. I have looked at the full text of the bill, and it is so full of legalistic jargon and crap that I can't make heads or tails of hardly any of it. But I've talked long enough. Let me know what you think in the comments. Just remember to keep it civil. We do not learn from argument, we learn from debate. As always, please remember to like and share this video, as well as to comment below civilly. As well, and also please subscribe and turn on notifications so that you are among the first to know of any and all new content as it is posted. Until next time, everyone have a wonderful day.